This week in Grace's Girls Club, we're paying special attention to the S in the word STEM. I want you to meet Dr. Sara Cline. She's going to tell us a little bit about herself. Sara, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Tell us your title and where you work.
Hey, I'm Dr. Sara Cline, and I'm a professor of biology at Athens State University.
It is so good to have you with us. So, Dr. Cline, walk me through a little bit about your job and your day-to-day at Athens State.
Great. So, I'm actually primarily a teaching professor here at Athens State. So, on a day-to-day basis, I primarily teach and guide students through research projects.
What might some of those research projects look like?
Oh, great. Um, So I do a couple of different areas. I do bioinformatics and I also do some wet lab stuff. So for bioinformatics, there's a lot of data mining. So looking at the huge amount of data being produced through genomic sequencing and looking at variants in individuals and how that might impact their physical lives, their phenotype. And then in the lab, I actually focus on plants because I got my expertise is in plant biology, and we look at genes that have no known function in a model organism called Arabidopsis thaliana, or mouse-eared cress.
Say that word again, that last one.
Arabidopsis thaliana.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like to me. Couldn't spell it if you paid me. Um, so, Dr. Cline, of the letters in STEM, I feel like science, probably the S, applies to you most. But do you use a lot of technology, engineering, and math as well?
Yes. When I first came to Athens State, I had to go buy a toolbox because uh, in addition to data mining on the computer, we also have to, in the lab, take care of equipment. So um, you just you just have to deal with things as they break. So centrifuges, incubators. Sometimes, what I had a student the other day that 3D printed a plant petri dish holder that is phenomenal. We're going to use it to look at root growth. So you just kind of have to work with the equipment and adjust your settings to fit the experiment that you're doing at the time.
That is incredibly cool. I never would have guessed that there was that level of technology. That's awesome. So walk me through how educationally you got to where you are. If I was a young student or a young girl and I thought, maybe this is what I want to do one day too, how would you tell me to get there?
Yeah. Um, well, I did a bachelor's in biology at Transylvania University in Kentucky. And then I went on straight to a PhD in plant cellular and molecular biology at Ohio State University. Um, the I would recommend when you first go into college, just take a bunch of different classes and try and find which one you enjoy the most. And then, as my mother said, ask yourself, how am I going to make a living?
So important.
Just balance these two things. And then a lot of people don't know this, but especially in the molecular sciences, your PhD should be paid for, either through a teaching assistantship or a research assistantship. Um, and it's not um, it's not a lot of money, but it's generally enough to live on, somewhere in the range of 20 or 30K a year. So you would be teaching and researching while you took classes.
You know, I am so glad you said that. A lot of what I hear when I'm out in schools and things like that is, I would love to get my master's, I would love to get my doctorate, but how on earth does somebody pay for that? So I'm so glad that you said that, because that's a great way to bridge that gap and do what you want educationally, but also make it financially feasible.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Sara, why did you choose this field?
Well, I was a nerd as a child.
Welcome to the club.
Um, and I love science, and I love learning. And a lot of people talk about their vision of the future as being like the Jetsons with flying cars and jetpacks and that sort of thing. But I was actually obsessed with sustainable science and perennial farming because in my the future tech that I was really interested in was enhancing the sustainability of our crops so that we can continue to grow as a human population and feed everybody. Um, so that's why I chose a career in plant cellular and molecular biology. I chose that career right before the concerns about GMOs
Hmm.
sort of exploded. And those are definitely fair concerns. But I think a lot of the concerns related to like frog tomatoes and things were were born out of a little bit of a misunderstanding about what we were doing. And actually, the people were probably worried about the slightly incorrect thing. Um, and at I'll go on a small tangent here, sorry. At the time, the big concern for scientists was actually super weeds and crop resistance.
Hmm.
So, if you create these resistant crops that are herbicide resistant, you start selecting for weeds that are also herbicide resistant, and you increase the competition for the creation of that food. And since then, they've developed ways to modify plants by inserting maybe just one gene and removing that herbicide resistance. So they've kind of overcome that technical hurdle. And so when I moved into the field, they were at that point where they were transitioning from this herbicide resistance gene selectable marker. And I moved into a lab that I wanted to look at enhanced nutrition in crops. So um, increasing vitamins and minerals in traditionally um, high starch, low nutrient crops.
How incredibly cool. And you know what I have to say? You and your mom would get along very well with me and my mom. The practicality of you need to pick a job that is going to make you enough of a living, and people in America and all over the world need to eat. So, how are we going to make enough food for them to be able to eat? You two are very practical, and I love it.
I grew up on an organic heirloom flower farm.
That is
So,
incredibly cool. In Kentucky?
yeah, in Kentucky, in rural Kentucky. So we were a bit of an outlier.
That is incredibly cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what made you bridge the gap from working in the lab to working full time in education?
I found that I really enjoyed working with people. And so this is actually common for women in the sciences is they find that pure science in the research lab where you're doing nothing but pipetting is maybe not fulfilling enough.
Hmm.
And so I chose a field that would allow me to do both. And that's why I moved into a teaching and research position.
I love that. And you know what? I really relate to that as well. We were speaking before we started the interview, and my bread and butter is physics. I'll look at an acceleration equation all day long and derive it as many different ways as you want. So for a long time, I was thinking about being a career and lab physicist, that worked behind the scenes. But it kind of came the same way of, well, wait a minute. I don't only want to stare at a microscope and just run numbers all day long. I kind of want to be able to
Right.
talk to somebody. So I
Yeah.
very much relate to you in that way.
Yeah. Yep.
Now,
A
you were
lot of
sharing.
women,
Oh, I'm
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying a lot of women definitely do feel that way. So go ahead.
Yeah. So, piggybacking off of that, you said that biology is in large part drawing a whole lot of women to the field. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, actually, biology has reached parity, and perhaps even women are graduating at a higher rate with biology degrees than men at this point in time. They're falling out as they move higher up in their careers. Um, but at this point in time, there's plenty of women in science, and we think it's probably that human element and also healthcare is drawing a lot of women into the sciences.
Very, very cool. It kind of makes sense, right? I feel like there's an interior backbone of women to nurture, and so learning about life in the way of biology kind of goes hand in hand with that.
Yes, we are very beautiful systems.
I agree. So, Sarah, walk me through the best part of your job at Athens State.
Oh, it is definitely working with the students. Um, I really enjoy when students get excited about what they're learning and helping them discover things. So I've got not only students in the classroom learning things as we're talking about current advances in molecular genetics, but also I've got students in the research lab that are discovering things about unknown genes or novel variants. And I think that the delight that my researchers have when they're like, oh, really, I'm discovering this? This is
Wow.
me, is a really powerful thing. Yeah,
That is incredibly cool. You're probably watching all of their dreams come to life right in front of their eyes.
it is very, very cool.
So, if that's one of the best parts of your job, what is one of the most challenging parts?
Failing. In research, uh, I didn't realize how often you failed in research. So like you just when you stop failing at your research is done and you have to start again. um, so a lot of times I would say earning your PhD is banging your head against the wall until you break through the wall. So it's something to just be aware of when you move into research is that you got to be okay with um, not succeeding.
That
Yeah.
is a good lesson. So, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know how busy you are, but I do want to ask if you had a message to young girls or young students in general that wanted to join the STEM workforce one day, what would your message to them be?
Um, I think that it may be different today, but when I was growing up, there were a lot of people that were afraid or overwhelmed when I got excited about learning things and talking about the things I learned. Um, and I would say if people are reacting that way to you, try and find other people who don't react to you that way and actually are excited with you to hear what you have to say and what you've learned and talk to you about what you learned. um, I found a lot of support in clubs, like nerdy clubs. So chess groups, science groups, writing groups. Um, just find other people who are also into the same stuff you're into.
Yeah, I really like that message. Don't change yourself to be acceptable to your crowd. Change your crowd so that they appreciate and adore you.
Yes.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. Well, Dr. Cline from Athens State University in the Department of Biology, thank you so much for being here today. I loved this interview, and I know that all of our young girls are too. Welcome
Great.
officially to Grace's Girls Club.
Thank you, Grace. Appreciate your time.
It's so great to have you. Have a great day.